welcome to Game Set. This is Left in the Arcade, part 5, if you can believe it or not.
I can't believe it, Joe. This is an amazing series of episodes that we've got going on, and I always hate it because I like these games a lot, and I hate it because the games never got released at home. That's why I hate it.
That is true, and we've got quite a few games to show you that never got a home port on any platform. And with that said, what do I always say? Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
This is Martial Masters, released by IGS in 1999 in Taiwan and over the next 2 years in Japan and North America. This one-on-one fighting game lets you choose from 12 different characters. Right away, I'm taken aback by the fantastic 2D graphics and animation. And really, you should be too. They're very smooth and animate in a similar manner to Street Fighter 3, which was also released around the same time. And the controls are quick and responsive despite the many frames of animation. The characters all look really good. The backgrounds look fantastic, but there's no parallax scrolling. Oh well, I guess not everything needs to have parallax scrolling. Actually, yes it does. This game reminds me of both the Neo Geo and also the Capcom CPS2 hardware. It's like the Neo Geo because there are 4 action buttons, a light and heavy punch and a light and heavy kick. It also has those flickering shadows beneath the characters like pretty much every Neo Geo fighting game ever. But it also seems like the Capcom CPS2 arcade hardware mainly because of the non-square pixels. This game runs at a very high horizontal resolution of 448 pixels wide compared to the Neo Geo's 304 pixels. Actually, the CPS2 is only 384 pixels wide, so this is even more extreme! Anyway, most of the characters control pretty well, but there are some, like Scorpion here, which are downright odd. I guess this adds some charm to the game, but he's not really a character I'd want to spend any time mastering. But the game is fast, and if you want to master anyone, you're going to have to learn quickly, otherwise you're going to get pummeled. The moves and also the special moves are fairly easy and fun to figure out and pull off repeatedly. You've also got stuff like being able to recover from an attack before you hit the ground, or flash attacks where you can push your enemy away when they're trying to beat your ass. These help, but I couldn't always do them reliably. Regardless, I always have fun with this game, even when I'm losing. It's a fun fighting game, and it's probably one that not a whole lot of people know about. I think that if maybe more people played it in the arcade, then perhaps it would have gotten a home port. Unfortunately, it couldn't quite compete with Street Fighter 3. Still, this would have made a great game on the Dreamcast, but sadly for everyone, it never happened.
Here's Crime Fighters by Konami, and it was released in 1989. This is a side-scrolling beat-em-up, which is cool since I do like the genre. I also like the stories in these types of games because they're mainly also very similar. You're not going to believe this, but somebody's been kidnapping girls and it's up to you to rescue them, all while kicking some street thug ass all along the way. The fighting in this title is both good and bad. It's good because your character has some cool moves as he can punch, kick, throw, and use weapons that he's taken from his enemies. But it's also bad because the hit detection is off, and if you're too close to the street thug that you're trying to take out, you can't hit him. Your character also doesn't have a lot of reach when he's fighting, so you have to find the right spot to be in to land your attacks. The other bad thing is that if you're using a weapon that you've collected from your enemy and you get hit, it's gone. It would have been nice if it just got knocked out of your hand and then you could retrieve it, but nope, it just disappears. Another thing that I've noticed about this game is that there's no hidden items like health or weapons in background objects. Usually games of this style have these things, but this doesn't, and it feels pretty weird. It's okay though, since the game is still pretty fun without all of that. There's lots of funny things that happen to you as you're playing. Things like getting electrocuted if you happen to touch this neon billboard. Or when you see a hooker in the background and try to talk to her, you get flattened against a wall. These are just a few of the many funny things that I noticed while playing. The game has a sense of humor and it works. And this is good because it's not an easy game. There's times when you'll have lots of enemies on screen and you'll get pummeled left and right and then thrown against a wall and it'll take a long time for you to clear that area. Luckily though, you start off right where you die even if you need to continue. All in all, this is a pretty fun beat 'em up with lots of colorful levels and the soundtrack is surprisingly good at times. I enjoyed this one and you should try it if you can.
Here's Battle Circuit from Capcom, released in 1997. This beat-em-up was only released in the arcades in Europe and Japan. You can choose from 5 different characters and up to 4 people can play simultaneously. I've got to say that I like this one a lot more than I like most beat-em-ups that never got a home port. This game is just so weird and crazy. Basically, you're all bounty hunters and you're going after... Well, you know what? The story is extremely nonsensical, so just know that you need to beat everyone up. I mean, that works. Each character is based on a color. You've got your normal character with Cyber Blue here, but honestly, the rest are anything but normal. There's Captain Silver, who's kind of a stretchy guy, and he can even turn into a cannon. Yellow Iris is an animal-like woman who's probably the second most normal character you're gonna get. Pink Ostrich is exactly that, a pink ostrich with a little girl riding her. And finally, there's Alien Green, who appears to be a vicious living plant. Who the hell would hire a friggin' plant as a bounty hunter? Oh well, I guess if he gets the job done. You have 2 buttons to worry about, your attack and your jump, that's it. And really, that's all you're gonna need. If you press both buttons at the same time, you'll do a special move which can cause some good damage, but of course that's gonna drain your life bar. Fortunately, there's food icons all over the place to help you refill it. There's another move which provides status effects that you pull off by jumping and pressing both buttons and up all at once. This depends on your character, so you might be powered up for a brief time, increase your defense for a bit, get some health back on your life meter, or even increase your speed. And you can usually only do these twice per credit. Also on the ground all over the place are coins and other forms of money. Collect as much of this as you possibly can. In regular games, these would just be for extra points, but in this one, you get to spend it between rounds powering up your character with new moves and effects. It's pretty cool. The game plays well and it feels very fluid no matter which character you choose to play as. I like this a lot as you never feel burdened by bad design or control. Well, I don't know if the plant guy is really fluid, but he works. I often get bored with arcade beat-em-ups due to the repetition, but really not this one. The enemies and the characters are funny even if they don't make a damn bit of sense. The graphics are incredibly good with fantastic colors. The animation's also very nice everywhere you look. To top it all off, the music is fantastic and makes the game that much more enjoyable. It's a tough game, of course, and you'll find yourself dying a lot. It's sad that this was never released for any consoles or even arcades in the US. But since it came out in 1997, it's not tremendously surprising. The Saturn was almost dead by then, and the PlayStation was fully immersed in 3D. Still, I'm kinda surprised that Capcom didn't give it a Japan-only Saturn release utilizing one of the RAM carts. If you can, go to a Japanese or European arcade today or tomorrow and play this one. Or just use MAME, whichever's more convenient.
Ring of Destruction Slam Masters 2 is the sequel to Saturday Night Slam Masters. It's a very arcadey wrestling game from Capcom which was released in 1994. All of the characters from the first game are back along with some new ones. I do like the character design and the variety in wrestlers. And a lot has changed since the first game. For example, you can't move all around the ring like the original and you're stuck on a single plane like a one-on-one fighting game. Also, you no longer pin your opponents. After they lose all of their double life bar, it's the end of the round. The game still has a lot of grappling moves, which is what wrestling is all about, but you have lots of punch and kick moves too. In fact, there's even moves you can pull off via Street Fighter style inputs like a fireball or dragon punch motions. Come to think of it, this game feels a lot more like Street Fighter than a wrestling game. It's fine though because the game is fun. The fighting is what you'd expect from a Capcom game, and that's precise. I really didn't have any problems pulling off moves and had a great time. That is until the difficulty ramped up. The game teases you and lets you win the first round very easily. Come the second round, it's a very different story and your opponent wakes up and blocks and counters a lot of your moves. I mean, you really can't expect an arcade game to be easy, right? It's frustrating, but not to the point where you want to give up and stop playing. Being a wrestling game, all of your matches are of course in wrestling rings. Capcom did their best trying to have a lot of variety in the backgrounds, and each character has their own ring, which is nice. But the problem is it's a wrestling ring and not a street fight, so the variety isn't amazing. It's a shame this game didn't get ported to a home system. It's definitely challenging, but at the same time it's a lot of fun. It's totally worth throwing a couple of bucks into it if you ever see it in real life. Which you won't.
ESP Raid is a Japan-only bullet hell shooter from Cave. This one is unique from other overhead shooters in one amazing way. You control a flying human being instead of planes or spaceships. Isn't that incredible? Okay, not really, but it is kind of sorta unique, I guess. This game takes place in the year 2018, so if you live in Tokyo, go outside and look up. You just might be able to witness this game happen live. You get to choose from 3 different individuals, each with their very own hopes, dreams, and yes, ESP powers. And in order to make those hopes and dreams come true, you gotta blow things up with your ESP. Lots and lots and lots of stuff. Each character has slightly different weapons, but they more or less work exactly the same. You have your normal rapid shot, which you'll spend most of your time using. If you hold this button down, your character will move around a little bit slower, and that will help you navigate through some of the chaos. Kind of. The next button over is sort of a limited condensed shot thing that drains the outside meter at the bottom, but it refills almost immediately. The last button can be held down to generate a shield around you, which makes you invulnerable and also gets bigger and bigger as long as you hold it down. And once you let it go, it releases a powerful shot with 4 beams. You can usually do this 3 times per life or more if you hold it down for less each time you do it. I don't think there's a way to refill the blue meter at the bottom because I can never stay alive long enough to find out. The easiest way I found to refill it is just to die and get a new life. The game controls well enough, but it's a bullet hell shooter, and that means there are tons and tons of colored bullets all over the place. Your hitbox is super tiny, much smaller than your character, maybe only a few pixels in size. Same goes for the bullets themselves. I don't know where these hitboxes reside in each sprite, but it makes things very confusing when things overlap and nothing happens. It's pretty much the opposite of what you'd expect. I mean, if a bullet touches any part of me, I should die. Or at least take some damage. As a result, I never really understood the appeal of the bullet hell subgenre. I mean, if that's your thing, then yeah, you're gonna like this one. I've got to say though that I didn't care much for this game at the beginning, but as I got more and more used to it, I did begin enjoying it more and more. In fact, one part I really enjoyed was murdering all of these chipmunk women with my vicious ESP powers. I mean, just listen to them die. The graphics are all really nice when you can see them. And by that I mean when the screen isn't covered in bullets. There's tons of detail here that you'll probably never see unless you want to die immediately. Oh, and everything blows up really nice. There needs to be more parallax scrolling though. Come on, Cave, don't wimp out on me like this. The music is decent, from what I can hear. And that's hard because the sound effects are all extremely loud and they're constant giving the mayhem on screen. Amazingly, this one never came to the Dreamcast back in the day like you'd expect. It didn't even arrive on any later consoles as part of a compilation. And honestly, that's because it was released in the arcades by Atlus, and there are some issues bringing it home without both Atlus's and Cave's consent. Still, if it had shown up on a home console, would you have bought it?
Alright, Joe, there's 5 games that could have easily been ported to a home console somewhere.
Yeah,
But
they just
didn't.
weren't.
Damn it all.
But we've got 5 more.
Shadow Force from Technos is a side-scrolling beat-em-up that stands out from other games in the genre. In this 1 or 2 player game, you can pick from 4 completely different characters. They each have their own attacks and specials, so it's really fun to try them all and see which one you like the best. The game boasts a 6-button control scheme, which is a lot for a game of this style. There's a jump button, 2 buttons for weapons, 2 buttons for kicks, and the most interesting button lets you possess an enemy character. You can take control of a lot of the base enemies that you fight. Not only that, but you'll be shown how to do the special moves of the character that you just took over. This is a really cool feature that adds some depth to what is just an otherwise run-of-the-mill beat-em-up. And if you don't like the character that you possessed, just push the possess button again and you'll switch back to your normal character. This is also a good way of quickly defeating an enemy. In the beginning, the game lets you pick what level you want to start on, and then it takes over from there. All the characters have a decent variety of moves, and there's even screen-clearing attacks that come in handy a lot of times. One feature that this game has that I like is the ability to block by pushing backwards on your control pad. Another feature that I'm not sure if I like or not is your character always faces your nearest enemy. It's a really good idea, but it feels just weird at times since I'm used to facing whatever direction I want to. There's all sorts of items hidden in breakable containers such as health and extra points, but there's no weapons unless your character already wields one. As far as the graphics go, the game looks great. There's tons of color and lots of variety in the backgrounds you fight on. And who doesn't love the huge Technos billboard that takes up over half the screen? I know I love it. I mean, it's Technos. Who doesn't love Technos? The music, on the other hand, feels pretty weak. It really didn't do anything for me, and I barely noticed it when I was playing. Still, I had a fun time with this game, so I think you should try it out. You'll be happy you did.
Let's check out Guardians from Banpresto. This one is also known as Denjin Makai 2. The first Denjin Makai game was released in Japan on the Super Famicom, but the sequel here was arcade only. Obviously, I don't need to tell you that it's a beat-em-up, even though I kinda just did. You can choose from a total of 8 different characters, which is pretty damn generous for a game in this genre. The mission here is to defeat your enemies without being defeated yourself, so pretty much just like every game ever. You have 3 buttons you can press to help you out. One is your normal attack, which is usually a punch or slash type action depending on the character. Then there's a special button, which in most cases will be a form of projectile attack. This depletes your power meter, which is below your life meter. And of course, you also have a jump button. If you press the jump and normal attack buttons together, you get another special attack which damages most enemies close to you. This will also eat up your power meter. The weird thing is that even after it runs out, the power meter will recharge itself fairly quick, so you'll rarely be unable to do these kinds of attacks. But the recharge will cost you a sliver of your life bar. Despite this, you'll still find yourself overwhelmed by the sheer amount of enemies on the screen at once, all trying to kick your ass. It can get pretty crowded at times. Finally, each character has a big super special type of attack. There's also items to pick up for points, life refills, and even some melee weapons. The characters you control are all pretty unique, and some, like this guy, are pretty weird. And the boss he's fighting here is just as weird. In fact, a lot of the enemies are weird looking in some way. That's cool though, I like that, it gives it some uniqueness. The visuals are pretty nice, often having lots of parallax scrolling, and you know that's all I need in my life. There's also fun stuff happening in the backgrounds here and there. Like this guy back there who's quickly painting the Banpresto logo on the wall. Or these guys who are precariously balancing cards on a table and then you burst in and ruin their day. Or how about these guys who saw down the trees so they fall forward and crush you? And what self-respecting beat-em-up would be without an obligatory elevator stage? The music is kind of weird and it doesn't really fit the game at all. In fact, I'd say that it brings the overall experience down a notch. It's not bad music, I just feel it could be a lot beefier given the game itself. It's still fun for the most part, and I definitely recommend trying it out if you can. I'm a bit surprised that it didn't get a port to the Super Famicom, but it'd need to be compromised quite a bit if it did.
Here's Joe and Mac Returns from Data East, released in 1994. This title strays from the previous side-scrolling games in the series and is now a single-screen platformer in the vein of Bubble Bobble. My first thought was that this wasn't going to be a good game at all. But you can't always trust your instinct because this title is actually very fun. The gameplay is simple. Your character has a club that shoots some fire along the ground. The fire doesn't kill but instead stuns your enemies. If you don't do anything after that, they come back to life, but who would just leave a stunned enemy alone, right? Once you walk over to them, you bag them. Then you can take the bag and shoot it across the screen, killing another enemy. If you're good enough and can stun 2 or more enemies, you'll get them in a big bag that can wipe out a whole platform. It's easy and it's fun to do, and you know what? That's what matters. Every level has a trapped cave girl that you need to rescue. You do this by just walking by them, and they'll be so grateful that they will give you lots of food and points and sometimes a weapon. Make sure you don't hit the cave girl with your club because they'll push you away and you won't get anything since they don't like that kind of treatment. But yeah, enemies also drop lots of food for points and a lot of yummy sushi. They also drop power-ups from time to time. When you collect it, your cave guy yells out, "I got a power!" These power-ups can range from moving faster, having a bigger mallet, or being able to shoot projectiles. Another interesting feature is an enemy generator that you'll find on some stages. It's reminiscent of games like Gauntlet as it keeps spitting out enemies until you destroy it. And of course, what game like this would be complete without a boss battle at the end of each area? None, I tell you, no game would be complete. The boss battles are fun, but overall pretty easy. Between levels, you're treated to a cutscene that usually involves a cave girl accidentally being liberated from her clothes and the cave guys gawking at her. It's really too bad that this game never got a home release. It's hugely colorful and looks amazing, and I would have been all over this game back in the day. Not to mention, the music is really fun as well, with lots of sampled voices and instruments. Oh well, I guess if it did get a console release, I wouldn't be talking about it here. Have you played it? Tell me what you think.
This is Pirates from a company called Nyx, and it came out in 1994. In this extremely obscure Cabal ripoff, you play the role of a pirate in search of some treasure. Basically, you can run back and forth in the foreground. You have a cursor which you can aim as you fire and shoot stuff. You also have a limited number of grenades you can toss anywhere the cursor is pointed. The enemies definitely fire back at you, and you can shoot most of their bullets down before they get to you. But if you can't, the last button is a dash move that will save your hide as you slide right through the bullets unharmed. You'll be murdering tons and tons of people who are trying to stop you from getting the treasure, but hey, this is money, so lives do not matter. You have some pretty damn powerful guns too, as you can destroy ships all the way on the horizon back there with your little pistol. I mean, damn! There's also some strange stuff that flies in from time to time, like this noisy witch. Shoot her and she'll drop an item like an extra bomb. You can also get gun power-ups which have a faster shot and a wider range. And even with all this, you'll still find yourself dying quite a bit. Most of the levels have destructible backgrounds, and you know it's always satisfying to watch the homes of innocent people crumble on my quest for the gold. Damn them. In each stage, there's also a slightly hidden bonus prize that's worth a ton of points. And at the end of every third stage, you get to fight a boss, and these fights are pretty fun. The graphics and the sound are both pretty primitive for an arcade game released in 1994. This may be one reason why it never came home, because it would have been a huge step backwards to what was already being released on the 16-bit consoles at the time. Another reason might be that publisher Nyx was extremely small and couldn't afford to port it. That's okay, because it's not even the best of the Cabal ripoffs anyway. Plus, Wild Guns would be released the following year on the Super Nintendo in North America and the year after that in Europe. So honestly, it's not really a big loss that this one never came home. But if you actually see an operational Pirates machine in real life, give it a play because you probably won't see another.
This is Gandara, a two-player vertical run-and-gun game by Banpresto released in 1995. It seems some sicko out there has taken all the children from a village and you need to get them back safe and sound. The fighting takes place in many different but typical locations like jungles and whatnot. It does make things interesting since you don't do all of your fighting on your feet. The second level, for example, has you riding a motorcycle killing lots of other dudes on motorcycles, which is pretty fun. Your character is equipped with a normal gun but can quickly ditch that for something better. In fact, trying out the new weapons was one of the most enjoyable parts of the game for me. There's quite a few and I really haven't found one that I don't like since they all look really cool and do a fair amount of damage. Many enemies take multiple shots to kill and that can kinda slow down the pace a bit. Honestly though, you'll hardly notice it. Besides your normal weapon, you have a special weapon that can be used 2 times while you're alive. These of course are pretty powerful and can get you out of a tight spot quickly. I always try to save them for boss fights since that's where they're usually most useful. Oh, and there's a third button here that lets you kick your enemies. I'm not really sure why this is here as I never got close enough to an enemy to actually put my foot in their ass. But it's there just in case you want it. Rescuing kids is interesting as they're usually tied up to a 50-gallon drums of who knows what. It's not gasoline, that's for sure, or I would have blown those kids sky high trying to rescue them with my gunfire. And you can't miss them since they all yell "Mammy" or something like that and are all dressed in the same yellow uniform. The boss fights are kind of fun, but they kind of have a slight bullet hell feel to them. The game itself looks pretty good and there's quite a bit of animation to everything that's going on in the background. And the game isn't easy, especially the bosses. If you run out of lives and continue, the game puts you back so you can't just pile in credits to get through this one. It's a fun game, but really I think it'd be better with 2 players as then we could have more of a fighting chance.
right, there you are. 10 more games that we never saw at home. And like you, I'm disappointed that the Joe and Mac Returns never came home. That was fun.
Yeah, that should have been brought home. I mean, that was actually really, really fun.
And a lot of good beat-em-ups didn't make it home.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of beat-em-ups tend to stay in the arcade. What's up with that?
Yeah, and then they released crap like puzzle games. Sheesh.
You like puzzle games.
Not all of them, no.
Anyway, what are some more games, going back and checking our previous 4 Left in the Arcade episodes that got left in the arcade that you'd like to see us cover? Let us know, and hopefully they're not all like shooters.
Yeah.
I like to include a few shooters from time to time, but I don't want an episode swamped with them because they're hard to play, especially for you.
Especially for me, since I'm horrible at them. But
anyway, let us know. In the meantime, thank you for watching GameSet. Dave, what the hell are you doing?
I'm looking through your games here, Joe. I mean, we've done 5 Left in the Arcade episodes, and I'm afraid we're running out of ideas, so I'm just looking for some games in your collection for some ideas. Like Daytona USA, did that ever come home?
Yeah, I think it did, Dave.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
How about Sega Rally Championship? Now, that never got brought home.
Yeah, I think that one came home, Dave.
How am I supposed to believe you?
Because you're holding it.
I am, aren't I? Well, how about Burning Force? This never got brought home, did it?
I don't think it did, Dave. No.
It didn't?
No.
Oh, I'm going to cover this one then. This is my first game, so.
You do that.
All right, I'll see you later.
You see what I have to work with here?